guys, Super Chris Productions here, and in this video is going to be a commission showcase on 6 figures I have made from Avengers Infinity War. Now, these figures were made for someone on Instagram called DanFigs. I'm going to try and link his Instagram page down in the description below so you guys can go check him out. Now, normally I usually do these commission videos more so for credibility for future buyers. This one is going to be that, and it's going to be a bit of a comparison video, because as you guys know, I did make these figures. I did make all 6 of these figures for myself last year when Avengers Infinity War came out. And so I'll go into the details of how I made these, what I used this time, what I did differently, and show you guys how much I have improved since then. But, yeah, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. Alright, so here is the first figure. Spider-Man Far From Home came out, a month ago, July 5th. So I figured, why not start this showcase off with Spider-Man, since this is probably my favorite figure in the whole lineup of figures that I did for Dan. In redoing my Spider-Man, I think I did a really good job, and just so you guys can see, here was my old one, and this one is definitely 10 times better than the old one that I did. A lot of the webbing is a lot cleaner, added a lot more details to it, a lot more accurate details, and so the head string off is sculpted. I think I did mention this in my Far From Home showcase. This was the first Spider-Man figure I decided to sculpt the head because it was a request by Dan to sculpt the mask to make it look more like the Spider-Man mask. So I did that, and I also sculpted the eyes, and I think it turned out really great. A lot of the webbing also turned out really clean, and as you can see, he's got the black band thing that goes around the arms and around the torso and around the back. And I did paint like the black lines on the inside. I didn't really paint too much detail for web shooters, since technically they're on the wrists, and I'm not able to paint really tiny, so I just decided to leave them off. I mean, he doesn't really need it anyway, since in displaying the figure, the arms, you're not going to really see it, so. But I did paint the figure in my own denim blue color, and then I painted all the lines you see there as the details in black. And there's a few on the inside of the legs. All the paint work goes all around all 4 sides of the legs, all 4 sides of the torso, all sides of the arms. Even the top of the torso has webbing detail. And then the little spider emblem on the chest. And so that's it for Spider-Man, and now we can move on to the next figure. Another figure that is a huge improvement, Captain America, or Steve Rogers, whatever you want to call him. This figure is definitely a lot better than my old one. My old one was very simple. I mean, it still holds up, it's not too bad. It's more Lego style, this one. But the new one is has casted, sculpted arms. The arms and Captain America torso were sculpted by McLovin, and then Andrew over at AV Figures, he casted them, and Dan requested to have these parts on his Captain America, so I used them, and I just painted it in my own dark blue, and then I dry brushed everything to make it look dirty. Painted in the red detailing and everything, and I think it turned out pretty accurate to Captain America's suit in the movie. He requested I sculpt the hair as well as the beard, unlike my old one where I just sanded a widow's peak hairpiece and used that. I based this off of another customizer's Captain America because that as his request. I actually don't remember who they were. I mean, if you guys know, you can let me know. If you guys know, you can let me know in the comments down below. But and this hair sculpt was based off of another sculpted Captain America from Infinity War, and I sculpted the sleeves around the arms because the arms originally had muscles. And I sculpted the rolled up sleeves, I sculpted around the wrists, and I added magnets in the wrist, and this time, as you can see, I added the Black Panther shields, which are magnetic. And another new thing that I tried out on this figure was I added ball joints. So this is the first figure of mine to have ball joints included with the figure, because with the cast there was actually no armholes cut, and I tried cutting them out, but the arms wouldn't hold in place, so I decided, you know what, I'll try and add ball joints. So I did that, and that gives a lot of posability to the figure. So you can do different running poses, or even if you want to, poses with the shields. Here they are. So you can pose them with the shields and do a lot of cool poses that a normal minifigure can't really do. But yeah, so that's it for Captain America, and now we move on to the next figure. Bucky Barnes is probably the more simple figure of this lineup. I mean, besides his metal arm, which also has a casted sculpt of McLovin on there, as per request by Dan, which actually turned out pretty cool and also looks really nice with all the paint lines and everything for his White Wolf arm. And then here is a comparison with the Bucky that I made for myself last year. As you can see, all the detail was painted on and was basically painted onto a normal Lego figure. And this time around, I decided to sculpt his little wrist guard thing that he has there. And I sculpted the boots on the figure, and that is on all four sides, painted them in black. And I also sculpted the entirety of the torso, front and back. He does have the shoulder things that are electrical tape. I did do the same thing on my original Bucky with the electrical tape shoulder pads, and I tried to make this a little more accurate to the movie than mine originally was, and I also tried to make it look better with the sculpted detailing, as you can see. And like I said, it's really a simple figure. This back piece was just a cardboard piece that I cut out, and it also has a little gun or knife holster that's also cardboard. But yeah, so that's really about it for Bucky. Try not to make this showcase too long. Here's Black Widow, and here's 360 of her. And this is the Black Widow that I made for myself last year. As you can see, a lot less detailed. I did a more accurate hair color with the new one, filled in the holes on the side and the top of the friend's hairpiece, and I used a different head. This was a Star Wars pilot head from I don't know what set, and then this one was a Princess Leia head from the Force Awakens sets. And on my figure, a lot of the details was electrical tape, like the vest, all the straps, the little taser things on her wrists. And I didn't even add a backpack to this one, but as you can see on the new one, I added a lot more details. I sculpted the chest on this one, and I also sculpted the backpack. I sculpted the straps for the backpack. I sculpted the elbow pads, her taser things. I sculpted her shoulder areas. The belt is the only thing that is electrical tape on this figure, and then I did sculpt the knee pads, and I added these gun holsters. I made them out of cardboard since it was thin to cut and glue on, and then I painted those. And I also sculpted the collar, like the open collar, and I did curve the torso as well. And then this time around I also painted it in a dark green color, because when I first made this one, to me her outfit looked gray with certain photos, and then I realized it was like it was like an olive green or a dark green, so I just went with a darker green color based off of McLovin. When he did his, he did it in a dark green color. It looked pretty good, so I tried to do that. And then the zipper is painted in silver, and you can basically see all the details. The actual straps on the torso are painted on, and then the rest is what I left 3D. But so that's it for Black Widow. Here is Thor, and this one is also has this one has a lot more sculpting work probably than the other figures that I have shown. A lot more detailed sculpt work. I'll get Stormbreaker out of the way there. But as you can see, starting from the top, I used a normal Thor head, sculpted on the beard, and then I took a sleepy hair piece, sanded down the sides a little bit, and painted it my own tan color. And one thing you probably noticed about this figure, the first thing you probably noticed, is the cape is actually a sculpted cape. I took a piece of printer paper, which is basically what I have as my background here, and I cut that to the shape of the cape, and I layered clay on top of it because Dan requested a sculpted cape because he doesn't really like fabric ones. So it gave me the chance to make my first sculpted cape. So I took the piece of paper and I folded it over into the shape that I needed the cape to be. I trimmed it down, and then I took clay and I pressed the clay down onto the cape as thin as I could get it, enough to stick, and then I let that dry. I sanded it. I had to put a few more layers of clay on there, get it to hold its shape, and then I sculpted this collar piece around the top, and as you can see, it goes onto the torso. It has the collar, and I tried to get these pieces to make them look like they fit with the torso. These black pieces that come over, and there you can see the collar. He does have a very limited range of motion with the cape. He can't turn his head all the way around, only just side to side like that. It's not much, but I mean, it still works. And the arms and torso, I think I already said this in the beginning, were casted by McLevin. I painted the arms on my own gunmetal, wrapped the electrical tape, or no, these were not electrical tape. These were actually sculpted. I sculpted the wrist things around his wrists, and I sculpted the details like these little round disc things that he has on his outfit. And I sculpted this belt piece, and then the boots are sculpted onto the figure, just like my Bucky figure. And then probably the thing you're all waiting for, actually did forget to do the comparison. Here was mine from Infinity War. I used electrical tape, didn't sculpt the boots, and I did sculpt the disc and belt pieces, but a lot of the detail on here was made by cutting out electrical tape, and then I just painted a few lines. The beard was just painted on, and the hair was actually a lot more heavily sanded. I decided not to do the same thing here because it kind of looked weird, and I saw the Moose Figs when he did his Thor, and it looked pretty good when just the sides were sanded down, so I left the sides sanded. And so the main thing you probably are waiting for is Stormbreaker, because as you can see, this Stormbreaker is a lot different, a lot smaller than the one I originally did for myself last year. It is fully sculpted this time around. The only unsculpted part is the handle, and I did kind of cheat a little bit using the Lego, a trimmed down Lego axe blade as the base for the axe, and then I sculpted on top of that to carve all the details that you see here. And then I also did wrap clay around it to look like the tree branch, and I sculpted the bottom handle. So I wanted to do my Stormbreaker a lot better and a lot different for this figure, since a lot of details on this figure are sculpted. So why not make a sculpted Stormbreaker as well? But so that's it for Thor, and now we can move on to the final figure. Alright, so here's the final figure, Black Panther. Now, by Dan's request, I did paint this figure a lot differently, and I did a lot of things differently on this than I did on mine. Honestly, this is another figure that is 10 times better than the one I originally made for myself. The one thing you will notice is I did paint all the details in purple to show the suit's purple glow, and I did sculpt the ears on this one this time around. The one I made for myself last year, I just sanded down the ears of a Batman cowl. This time I sanded them off completely, sanded the head, so it sanded the mask. It was a little more rounded than this one, and then I sculpted the ears to make them stick out the sides a little bit and have a bit of an indent in there on both sides. And for the original mask that I did for myself, I actually used paper on the inside to hold the eyes into place. Like, that looks like clay, but it's actually very thin pieces of paper that are just painted. For this one, I didn't use any paper at all. I just sculpted it in there, and it's probably a lot better than the paper since the eyes come out a little bit more. And you can see basically all the purple details that I did onto the head, or onto the mask. And then the head is basically the same exact head as I did for me. Only difference is I sealed it in a gloss sealant, so it would match a little better with Lego style heads. And the torso and arms, another sculpt and cast of McLovin and Andrew. And the only thing that I really did to modify the torso was I sculpted the teeth necklace, and I also added ball jointed arms, as you can see there. So this Black Panther actually uses skeleton arms and little ball joints, while the Captain America that I did actually uses the leg socket method. So I tried two different ball joint methods for both of these figures. Both actually work out pretty well. I don't know which I would use more. It's probably easier to use the skeleton one. So if I do more ball jointed figures, I probably would honestly use the skeleton. But as you can see, all the details are painted. I do have a few purple details that cut around to the sides of the torso, as well as the silver belt. And I have all the teeth painted on the arms and around the boots, and the claws on the feet, and then the purple detail on the front and side of the legs. I couldn't really figure out what was on the back, so I tried basing the back off a bit of the Lego figure and a bit of, like, not easy to see photos. So I don't know how accurate the back is, honestly, but I still think it turned out pretty good. It's actually surprising that there's not too many photos of his back, being that he's been out in this suit with like 3 movies, I think. But so that does it for this figure, and that also does it for the showcase. And now we can go ahead and wrap up this video. Alright guys, that about wraps up this video. It is a bit longer than I anticipated, but I mean, technically these figures are basically entirely new figures, as you guys saw in my detailed explanations. Future projects that I am currently working on, still trying to finish up my Endgame version 2 showcase. Fat Thor finished. I don't remember if I showed this last time. I don't remember anything I talked about on my last update. It's been a while. I may be doing one soon, I'm not sure. And then Rescue just has the arms done, and, well, the arms are like half done, they still need to be painted. And I still just need to do the torso and the legs, and once I do that and paint the arms, this figure should be complete. So, I guess stay tuned for that. I do have other Endgame figures, like I'm doing Morgan Stark, and possibly an Armored Thanos, Professor Hulk, and I guess whoever else that I decide to make from Endgame from my showcase version 2. But yes, that about does it for this video. Really hope you guys liked it. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below. Don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe. And bye.